everybody, welcome to Painting with Rec. I'm your host Sam, and today we're going to paint a desert sunset. I'm going to go over the materials that we need to do this painting. You need a palette or a paper plate, acrylic paint. You need black, orange, white, red, and purple. Your brushes, a big brush, a medium, and a detail brush. Some paper towels, just in case we make a mess, and a cup of water. Make sure that you're also wearing your apron so that your clothes are all covered up, because acrylic paint usually stains. So we want to make sure that we're nice and covered, okay? We're going to get started on our desert sunset. The first thing we're going to do is get our palette out. We have our red paint and our orange paint, and we're going to start with our background. So what we're going to do first is coat our big brush, our biggest brush, in our red paint, and we're going to swoosh it back and forth and make sure our brush is totally covered. I'm going to bring my palette over here so it's out of the way. And we are going to have our canvas, our 16 by 20 inch canvas here. And you can either use an easel or you can even, lay it flat at home. It's totally up to you. When we are painting a landscape painting, we want to have our painting sideways like this so it's wide. And we're going to get started. All right. So like we did before, we had our red paint ready, and we are just going to go in a back and forth motion on our canvas with our red paint. So we're gonna actually transition from dark to light, and we're gonna go back and forth. When we stay in one direction, it'll give it a nice uniform sky-like look for our desert sunset. When you're in the West, if you ever travel there, I know it's a little hard to travel right now, but someday we're going to be traveling again. And there's lots of beautiful warm colors out there. Lots of reds and oranges. So we are going to highlight that. We're taking a little trip today in our minds down to the desert, because when you're doing art, you can go anywhere. So I'm going back and forth, and I'm wrapping my canvas. So I'm going to kind of scooch over here and get my sides with that red paint, because when you're painting on a wrapped canvas, it's always nice to finish off those sides so that it looks nice and even. Just looks better that way. So you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm getting these sides here. And then I'm going back to my front, and I'm just going back and forth. And you can do a little dance while you're painting too. Some music going. If you're at home, and really get into the groove. This will make it a nice, pleasant experience for you. This is a very simple painting. It's only a few steps, so it's really good for pretty much anyone. And my youngest painter did this painting, and he was only 4 years old, and he did a good job. So I promise that you'll be able to do this too. The materials are pretty inexpensive, and you get a lot for what you pay for, so you can make many paintings, and once you're all done, you'll know how to do this, and you can teach other people too. Because it's really important to teach art to other people. That's why I love doing it. So in recreation, I work here at Cadell Fine Arts, and we do a lot of different stuff. Lots and lots of different artistic things here. It's a whole art center dedicated only to art, so we don't have basketball, but we do still have a really good time. So make sure you stop by and get a schedule. So, all right, I am almost about done. I'm like about halfway up my canvas with my red. Getting all those little white dots from the texture from my canvas. And I'm gonna go in with my orange. With my dirty brush, you don't even have to wash it off. That way, it kind of gives you a nice ombre transition for your background. And I always like to start off with my background first because it's hard to paint the foreground and then try and go back and paint your background, because then it's going to kind of bleed into your foreground. So it's always nicer and easier to start with your background so that you have a nice base layer to work with. And in the art world, this is called blocking, where we just kind of lay down some color. So that's a nice term for you to know here at home. Get those sides. And see how that line is nice and blended? All I'm doing is going back and forth with my brush. Doing happy little strokes here for our background. And keep going with your orange paint. And when you're at home and maybe you're painting near a little one, this is great because you can teach them colors. And you can teach them how to make their own colors and mix their own colors. So art can be a learning experience too. So yes, we are going back and forth with our orange paint. And we're just gonna go all the way down to the bottom. Our bottom is gonna be covered up with some rolling hills, but it's always good to paint our whole canvas so that we have a nice base layer to work on and we're not getting too much texture from our canvas. Because your canvas is porous and it's gonna kind of soak up the paint. And when we get that base layer on, you're gonna get a nice smooth, whatever you're gonna be doing in the front, in the foreground of your painting. So I always recommend to paint your whole canvas and then start working on your foreground. So we are almost done. And then we're gonna let our painting dry. And it's important to let our painting dry fully before we start working on the foreground. Otherwise our colors are gonna mix. And sometimes that's a fun, happy accident, and sometimes not so much. So it's up to you. When you're at home and you're waiting for paint to dry, acrylic paint dries very fast. It's not like oil paint. Oil paint can take anywhere from a few days to a few months to dry. But when you're working with acrylic paint, it only takes anywhere from maybe 10 to 20 minutes. And if you're at home in the summer, it might take a little bit longer. So I'm going back with my brush. I'm getting those sides. I'm checking it out. I don't mean to block your view. I'm just letting you know what I'm doing. And I'm going back and forth. I'm painting the house. We did before. Like we've been doing here. I'm getting this last little corner. All right. There. And so the bottom is going to still be white. So when you're done and you're at home, you can always flip your canvas over and really finish off those sides, because we can't do that right now because our top is wet. Okay. So I'm getting my last little final touches, and we're going to let this dry for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to finish up our foreground. All right, so now that our background is all dry, we're ready to start working on the foreground. So here I have my big brush, and I have my black paint, and I have the rest of the paint for the painting here, but we're gonna start with our black, and our big brush, coat it real good. And I'm gonna swing my palette around and I'm gonna start doing my rolling hills. So in the desert, it's not flat. There's lots of mountains and lots of beautiful formations out there. So about 25% up, quarter of the way from the bottom, we're going to start doing our rolling hills. So just let your hand gesturally go down. We just make a nice line with our big brush. Now we're just gonna block that in like I taught you before. We're gonna fill it in. Just a fancy word for coloring. So I'm just kind of taking my brush and I'm going in the direction of those hills. So we're doing kind of like a squiggly line here. So before we were painting the house and now we're just kind of making waves here. So go ahead, fill that in real nice for a beautiful desert sunset. So I love the West and I go every year. My favorite place to go is Arizona, and I love going to see the Grand Canyon. And when you're out in Arizona, you're gonna see saguaro cacti, and that's what we're painting today. So now, if you're a little one at home, you're gonna know what a saguaro cactus is. And they kind of look like a person dancing. So they're really fun to paint. And very simple too. So I'm taking my brush and I'm kind of doing like I said before, I'm wrapping my color around, doing that black on the side, and I'm going back and forth now, filling in over that orange that we did before. So let's get this all filled in, back and forth. You can even go ahead and do your little waves like we did before as well. Back and forth here. Make sure that we cover up all that orange. And we're gonna get that corner down here now. And finish wrapping it on the side. Very nice. There. Got this little spot. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna take my big brush and I'm gonna put it in my water cup and I'm gonna let that sit and dry for a moment. In my apron, I've got a medium brush and a detail brush, and I think I'm gonna use my detail brush so that I can start to outline my cacti. So I'm going in with my palette, and we're doing black because it's gonna look like a silhouette. So at night when you're looking at stuff and the sun is behind it, you're gonna see the black shadowing. So that makes a very nice contrast. I'm gonna swing this around and kind of think in your mind about your own desert scene. So think about you're traveling and you are in the nice desert. Where are your cactus gonna be? Where are your cacti gonna be? All right, so I'm gonna make a big U, an upside down, a frowny in the center of my canvas, just to kind of start shaping out where my cacti are gonna go. So this one is in the front, so it's gonna be larger. And this one's gonna be kind of in the middle. And we can kind of stagger them, make them different sizes. Here's a little small guy. And we're just making kind of like tight rainbows almost. These arches all over our canvas. And here's another one here too. So it's everybody's is gonna look a little different because this is your trip and this is how you're gonna wanna like it. So I'm just quickly doodling, I'm laying down where my cacti are gonna go. And then I'm gonna put my small detail brush in the water because we don't want our brushes to dry out. And I'm going to take my medium-sized brush now and go in with the black, and we're going to block in all of our little guys here. Swing this around, and now I'm going in the direction of the cacti. And this is called painting the fence when we're going up and down. So we're going to paint the fence, up and down motion. So right now, they're just going to look like fingers kind of sticking up from the ground. And then we're going to go in and give them their arms. Because like I said, in the desert, it almost looks like they're dancing. They're dancing in the beautiful landscape out there. So I'm filling that in, going back. And if you see any little streaks, you can kind of go back and fill that in. And don't worry too much about having perfect lines, because in nature, everything is not perfect. And that's why I love painting it so much. See, we're not going for perfection, we're going for fun. And we're relaxing and we're listening to music. And you know, these paintings would make a great decorative piece in your home, or even a great gift. So again, I'm taking my medium-sized brush, and I'm even kind of scooping around to get that nice and filled in. All right. Going in with some more black, and I'm painting the fence. I'm going up and down until I get all my little cacti filled in. Cacti is plural for cactus. Very nice. And they're all different fun sizes. Sometimes you'll see one, oh, they're so big out there. It's so interesting to see. But it's, like I said, since we can't travel right now, this is where we're going. Okay, got all my little guys filled in, and now I'm going to start giving them their arms. So I'm going to take my medium brush, I'm going to put it in my water, and I'm going to get my detail brush back out, and I am getting all that excess water off of my brush, making sure that it's nice and clean, and I'm going to go back in with my black, with my detail brush, and we're going to start giving them those arms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one line, and I'm going from left to right, and I'm going to go up and swoop and come down. And sometimes their arms are like our arms and they're sticking up like this, and sometimes they're staggered and they're not perfectly on the other side. But for my middle guy, I'm going to make him look like he's making a muscle. All right, so again, I'm just going to kind of map out where I want those to be. So now on this guy, I'm going to make one up, and I'm going to put one down here. And they don't always have 2 arms. You can do 3. You can give them as many as you want. I've seen some with 100. So it doesn't have to be only 2. So there's 3 there. Some cacti have little circles. We have a little fly friend joining us today too. Hello. All right. So I did some little circles here, and I'm going to come over here and put some arms here. Maybe this guy's only going to have 1. And I'm going to go up over here, and I'm just having fun. I'm just putting arms wherever I want my little guys to have arms at. And some up here. Maybe I'll have 2 on one side too. One over here in the middle. All right, So now that we got our guys all making little muscles here, we could just take our detail brush or even our medium-sized brush and fill those in. But I think I'm just gonna take my detail brush for now and fill this in. Okay. Very nice. So when the sun is setting in the desert, typically you can still see the moon. So our next step, when we're done filling in our color, we're done blocking, we're gonna do a little crescent moon. Because when I was in the desert, there was a beautiful crescent moon in the sky and it was smiling. It looked like it was smiling. So I'm gonna do one of those. All right. We're getting his arms all colored in. And our paint is drying pretty fast. That's a good thing. And if you tend to mess up, you just go ahead, go right over it. Because there's no mistakes in art. Only happy little accidents. All right. Perfect. So we're also gonna maybe put some clouds and add a little purple just to kind of balance out all the warm and the cool colors. We're gonna add a splash of purple in there because why not? We're just making it fun. So we already have our purple on our canvas, on our palette here. And I'm gonna show you how to make clouds. And it can be a little intimidating at first, but I promise it's gonna be very simple. I'm gonna break it down for you. I'm almost done with my arms. And this guy's got like, it almost looks like little ears. That's pretty cool. 3 more. Here we go. Just taking our black, filling that right in. I'm even holding my brush like a little pencil because that'll give you a little bit more control. Perfect. All right. So we can step back, kind of take a look at it. I think it looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm gonna take my detail brush and I'm gonna wash it off. I'm swirling it in my water and I'm drying it off so that we don't get watery paint going on here. And we're gonna make a crescent moon. So that's very simple to do. And our fly friend is back, okay. All right, so it just depends. It doesn't matter where you want your crescent moon. I think I'm gonna put mine on the right-hand side and I'm gonna have it facing this way. So it's basically like the letter C. So you can do it this way or you could do it this way. So I'm gonna make mine backwards. So I'm just gonna do a swooping motion. You don't wanna hesitate too much. Just go with it. Here, boom, perfect. Go back and we're gonna connect that line there. We're gonna fill that in. And there's my sideways smile. If you're feeling like a lunatic, you can do a full moon if you'd like. All right. All right, so now we're gonna do some stars twinkling in the sky as our sun is setting. And what I'm gonna do is instead of taking my brush and trying to make tiny little dots, again, I'm going to take the bottom of my brush and I'm gonna dip it, just tap it right into my white paint. Swing my palette around and I'm gonna make some nice little twinkling stars in the sky. There we go. And you know, you can make as few and as many as you want, but I think it adds a little something to our painting, having our little stars here. All right. A couple over here, so we're balanced out. Maybe a couple up here too. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. One more. All right, so we're gonna do a couple little clouds. So I'm gonna actually retire my detail brush until the end, and I'm going to take my medium-sized brush, get that nice and cleaned off. So it's got a lot of black on it. Make sure you clean up your mess when you're done, guys. Don't be making a big mess at home with this. Make sure, see, I got a lot of black on there. Make sure you clean your brush real good. That's better. Squeezing all that extra water out. I'm checking for color, because we're doing white. We don't want to get our black mixed up in there, do we, guys? All right, here's our little clouds. All right, because, you know, in the desert, you don't get a lot of clouds, you don't get a lot of rain, but while I'm vacationing here in my painting, I'm going to add some clouds. I'm going to add some purple, just for the fun of it. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of mixing a little bit of white, a little bit of purple. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going for a certain shade. We're just kind of lightening it up a bit. And we're going to do some nice flowy clouds. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth and make some wispy clouds in my sky. Yeah, that looks really nice. And I'm adding a little bit more dark purple. So the light is illuminating from the bottom. So our darkness is going to go up here a little bit, okay? So I'm taking my darker purple and I'm adding it a little bit to the top there, because you got to figure out where your light source is coming from. I'm going to put a couple of little happy clouds here. One, maybe one here too. Adding a little bit of dark purple on the top, because our sunsets are colorful. Maybe one floating down here too. And a little bit more dark purple on the top. And there you have it. That looks like a beautiful desert sunset. Now our last thing and most important thing, guys, out there, is get our detail brush. Make sure it's nice and clean. And I'm gonna take my white paint, because we got some nice dark color down here. I'm gonna dip it in, and make sure you always sign your work, because you never know how far you'll go. I put an S for Sam and a little dot, and there we go. We have a beautiful desert sunset painting. I'm gonna take my brush and make sure that I wash that really good when I'm all finished. And there we have it. All right, so we've completed our desert sunset. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Sam, and this is Painting with Rec, and I'll see you next time.